You know those huge, super bright digital billboards you see everywhere? Ever just stop and wonder, how does that actually work? Well, it turns out the technology powering those screens is right in the middle of a massive revolution. Today, we're going to break down the tech that makes it all possible. Let's dive in. I mean, they're everywhere, right? From Times Square to your local stadium. But here's the thing, not all screens are created equal, not even close. The display you see at a Super Sunny Outdoor Festival is built completely differently than the slick one in a corporate boardroom. So, what's the deal? What's the difference, and which tech is actually the best? That is the big question we're tackling today. Okay, so before we can pick a winner, we've got to get the basics down. Let's talk about the fundamental building blocks that make any digital image, well, possible. At the very heart of it all is the LED, the light-emitting diode. The easiest way to think about it is like a microscopic light bulb. You send a little bit of electricity through it, and boom, it lights up. Now group millions of these little guys together in red, green, and blue, and you get the pixels that create all those amazing images we see. But just how bright are those tiny lights? That's where something called luminance comes in. It's just a fancy technical term for brightness, and believe me, it is absolutely critical. A screen with low luminance is going to look totally washed out in the sun, but a high luminance screen, it can slice right through the brightest daylight. So yeah, without the right luminance, even the most amazing screen is basically useless outdoors. All right, basics are down. Now it's time to meet the stars of the show. There are three main technologies for packing all those tiny LEDs into a screen, and each one has a totally different way of getting the job done.
First up, we've got the old champ, the long-reigning king, SMD. That stands for Surface Mounted Device. For years, this has been the standard, the go-to tech that built almost every big screen you've ever seen, even if you had no idea what it was called.
So how's it work? Think about building with Legos. With SMD, each and every pixel is like its own little self-contained Lego brick. Inside this tiny black package, you've got three separate LEDs, one red, one green, and one blue. This whole little unit is then soldered right onto the surface of the circuit board.
So, to wrap your head around SMD, it's the classic way of doing things. You take individual RGB LED packages and you stick them on a board. But, and this is a big but, here's its weakness. Because those LEDs are just kind of sitting there on the surface, they're exposed. That means they're vulnerable to, getting hit, moisture, static, all the stuff that leads to those super annoying dead pixels.
So that brings us to contender number 2, Cobb, or chip on board. Cobb looks at that individual Lego brick idea and just tosses it right out the window. It takes a completely integrated approach to building a screen.
So instead of packing the LEDs up first, COB places the tiny, bare LED chips, the red, green, and blue ones, directly onto the circuit board itself. Then the whole thing gets covered with a layer of clear resin. What you get is a single, solid, perfectly flat panel. It's less like building with bricks and more like pouring a solid sheet of super durable plastic. And the result? Way, way better protection and a much smoother looking picture. And now for the new kid on the block, MIP, which is short for Micro LED in Package. This is a hybrid technology, and it's really smart. It tries to take the best parts of both SMD and COB to create something totally new and way more powerful. This quote really just nails it. The whole point of MIP isn't to start from scratch. It's to perfect the recipe by combining the strengths of the technologies that came before it. It's a best of both worlds kind of deal. So what's MIP's secret sauce? Well, it takes these incredibly small, powerful micro LEDs, puts them into a brand new, super advanced package, and then it mounts those packages onto the board. So if SMD is like using basic Lego bricks, MIP is like using these advanced, prefabricated, high-tech Lego modules. They're way stronger and more durable, just like COB, but you can assemble them with the speed and efficiency of the old-school SMD process. Pretty clever, right? Okay, we've met our three contenders. We know how they're built, so now it is time for the main event. We're going to put them head-to-head and see how they really stack up when it comes to the stuff that actually matters. This is the big question, isn't it? Which one actually wins? Now, based on what we've talked about, you might already be rooting for one. But let's see what the actual performance data tells us. Oh, this chart tells such a great story. Check out protection. SMD gets a measly 2 stars because its LEDs are just hanging out in the open. But COB and MIP? Perfect 5 stars. They're sealed and safe. Now for contrast ratio, the difference between the darkest black and the brightest white, MIP is the clear winner. But look at maintenance. SMD is king here because you can swap out one pixel at a time. COB's solid surface makes that a lot harder. And MIP, once again, finds that perfect sweet spot in the middle.
Let's get real specific here. In a fight for the best outdoor screen, how does the new MIP tech do against classic SMD? Honestly, the numbers are just staggering. MIP gives you a contrast ratio of 10,000 to 1. SMD, only 3,500 to 1. That's a 180% increase. What that means in the real world is that your blacks are actually black, not some washed out gray. And that makes all the colors just pop off the screen, even when you're fighting glare from the sun.
And what if we take the battle indoors? Well, the difference is even more insane. An indoor MIP display can blast out 4,000 nits of brightness. A standard indoor SMD, it's sitting at just 600 nits. That is a 560% increase in brightness. Plus, you get that amazing protection from bumps, dust, you name it. For any high-traffic indoor area, this is a complete and total game changer.
So, the data doesn't lie. But what does it all mean for you in the real world? Well, it all comes down to picking the right tool for the right job. So let's translate all these tech specs into a super simple guide.
It really breaks down pretty easy. If you're going fully outdoors where you're fighting sun, rain, all of it, MIP is the clear winner, no question. Its brightness, contrast, and protection are just unmatched. Same thing goes for those semi-indoor spots, like a stadium concourse or a train station. Then, for those really high-end indoor uses where you want the absolute best picture and you need everyone in the room to have a perfect view, both MIP and COB are phenomenal choices. They blow traditional SMD right out of the water.
So, when you look at all of this together, a really clear picture of the future starts to form. And this isn't just about small upgrades anymore. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how our screens are being built.
Here's the big takeaway from all this. We're moving away from that old method of just assembling a bunch of separate, fragile little parts like SMD. The future is all about integration. Technologies like COB, and especially the hybrid MIP, are creating screens that are just fundamentally stronger, brighter, and way more stunning to look at, all because they're built as one solid, cohesive unit. And that just leaves us with one last little thought. As all these components get tinier and tinier, and the protective surfaces get clearer and more durable, the line between what's a display and what's just a surface starts to get really, really blurry. It kind of makes you wonder, right? With tech moving this fast, how long is it going to be until the very windows in our offices and our homes are also our high-definition screens? Something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.